All right, so this is going to be a reading for Sagittarius. And for the Sagittarius that I'm reading for today, I'm getting a lot of really powerful downloads for you. So I just want to jump in here. I'm seeing that there's something that you really wanted in your life, and I'm seeing this as like a life path thing, a desire for the overall structure for your life, or maybe just it could be a career, it could be a project, it could be a relationship, but there's some like sort of dream or wish that I see here several times, and it comes through almost as like an ideal. Like, ideally, I would want it to be this way, or I would want this thing. And for a while, it could have seemed like you were progressing in that direction. You may have put a lot of your energy into this, a lot of your time. You really poured yourself into it. But I'm seeing that over time, it kind of became clear to you that the vision of it that you had, or the success that you were looking for within this, wasn't going to kind of materialize or wasn't going to happen the way that you wanted it to. And I am seeing you being pretty upset or disappointed over whatever this ended up being. And currently, realizing that you need to move on or taking the steps to move on here. So I'm going to dive into this more in a second, but before I do, Sagittarius, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for receiving this reading. I really appreciate all of the support that all of you give to the channel and just showing up to the readings. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you would like a personal reading, I do offer personal readings and I love doing them. So you can email me. My email is down below in the description box if you want one. Also, if you'd like to lend your energy to the channel more in a way that allows me to manifest messages that resonate most for you, you can like and subscribe. Now, Sagittarius, I'm seeing whatever it was that you were desiring, that you were hoping for here. It was almost like it would have been a dream come true. In my head, I'm hearing the word community, so maybe some of you had an idea for a community or a family or something involving other people, and you kind of had this like ideal life that you were envisioning there. Um, yeah, it involved collaborating with other people, but it also maybe came from some type of wishful thinking or desire from like your childhood or your inner child, or something maybe that was a little bit of a childish vision. And I don't mean that in a super negative way. I just mean like you may have been really attached to a certain outcome because of preconceived notions that you had. And I see you holding on pretty strongly to a certain way of doing things, or a certain choice, or a certain relationship, a certain connection. You could have had some type of attachment to other people or someone else, and when they didn't come through the way that you needed them to, or the way that you wanted them to, there could have been a lot of disappointment there. Um, and you could have kind of been lost in your head in like this way of like, well, why didn't they do what I wanted them to, or why didn't that work out? I really wanted that to work out. I really trusted them. I really put all my faith in them. There is a feeling of maybe putting all your eggs in one basket. So maybe you like had a partner and you thought, this is it, this is going to be my partner for life, and then they ended up not being the person that you thought they were going to be. Or maybe you had a friend group and you really were like, this is it, this is my group, this is my crew, I don't need other friends. And then you started to kind of realize like, oh, things aren't quite what they seem, or there's some type of toxic element there. And for many of you, it may have been that the thing that you wanted had this unhealthy energy. And so it wasn't really you bringing the unhealthy energy. It could have been that you were connecting with energies that couldn't match your frequency, or just couldn't rise to your level in some way, or just couldn't give you what you needed or what you were putting in. There is something about a lack of reciprocity here, and you kind of realizing after the fact that you didn't really get what you needed out of this connection or connections. And I see that really stressing you out. Really wanting this to move forward and looking to this other energy to move forward, to grow with you, to expand, but never quite getting to that point that you wanted it to be at. And maybe it started off kind of small, and then it did elevate, or you did take steps forward with this energy to some extent, but then at some point that energy became really stagnant or really stuck. And I see it kind of stopping and not moving forward. And at that point, that's when I see your stress really coming out, and you kind of being like, what's going on here? You know? In the current energy, I see you being kind of overwhelmed and then realizing, okay, if I'm overwhelmed, if I'm confused, I need to move on, which is good and true. I think if something isn't working, it's over and over again, it's time to move on. If you're getting a lot of resistance from something, it's time to take the path of least resistance and leave it behind. And it's interesting because there's many cards that could show what it means for you to move forward, but the card that's in the center of your reading today is the Eight of Cups, which specifically shows someone taking a cup and leaving the rest behind. And with that extra cup that they're carrying, that would make it the Nine of Cups, which is the card of happiness, individual happiness, contentedness. And so I kind of see you not just realizing what isn't working for you, but taking your personal happiness and your sense of self and moving on to something better. And so there's this message from Spirit here with the Four of Swords as well, that you really don't need to worry, that you're really on the right path and you're making the right choice by moving forward. And I actually see that as soon as you make the choice to move forward, as soon as you start taking steps to move forward, and even as soon as you emotionally move forward, because the 7-8 of Cups is about your emotions, it's like everything's going to relax for you. Any resistance that you were feeling is going to start to harmonize. And you're not going to feel the stress that you were feeling, the deception that you were feeling, the toxicity. It's all going to start to kind of dissipate. And many of you may not have even started moving forward yet, but emotionally you've kind of aligned with the idea of moving forward. And that's going to really alleviate a lot of the stress that you were feeling, just making this decision within yourself. The other thing about the Eight of Cups that I want to mention is that the sun and the moon in the image of the traditional Rider-Waite deck is aligned. And so that represents our masculine and our feminine being aligned, our internal and our external, our cool and our warm, our polarity, our duality is all aligned when we take the Eight of Cups and we take our cup and we move forward. So you're actually going through a really powerful transition moment, whether it's in yourself or externally or both, where you step into your power, you realize what it is that you need as an individual to be happy, and you move forward. And that's when I see a lot of this stress being released for you. Let's take a look at your current energy here. There could be some stress around your stability, your commitments. Am I going to be okay? Some of you could feel trapped within current commitments that you have. So that could be a home space, a relationship structure. It could be this connection that we saw from the past. So someone that you're connected to, you could feel kind of trapped within your obligations to them or within a structure within your relationship with them that you built. And that could be the piece that's been really overwhelming or really confusing. And I see you recognizing that, like recognizing that whatever this commitment is, that it is stressing you out, that it does make you feel trapped, that it is overwhelming and confusing. And that's what I see you moving forward from. So you're like, I'm going to make an executive decision. I'm going to move forward even if it's difficult. You're kind of showing me, it's interesting, you're showing me like a lower vibrational energy, and then you within yourself occupying this very powerful space and being like, I'm going to move beyond that lower vibrational energy. At the bottom of the deck, again, we have the Devil. So you're just pointing out to me there's something in your environment, in your surroundings, in your material world that's very toxic, very unhealthy, and you're kind of putting your foot down and saying, I can't let that into my sphere. I can't let that into my bubble. I'm getting an image of an energy within like a spherical circular space, like a bubble, and that bubble has been permeated many times and has let a lot of energies into it, when actually that bubble is meant to be a little bit firmer and be closed a little bit more. It's not meant to be opaque. There's not meant to be a wall between you and the world outside of you, but there's something here about boundaries and establishing boundaries and kind of making the executive decision to make those boundaries, even if it's difficult and even if you're not always sure of the next step. For some of you, you may feel like you're losing some type of material abundance by setting up this boundary. So maybe the thing that you're pushing to the outside is someone who is really supportive of you, or a job that gave you a lot of money and now you're moving on to a job where you make less money but you're more happy. It's something like that. And again, I do see this being for the best because I see it almost immediately relaxing you, particularly relaxing your mental space, allowing for more healing energy to take place. You're showing me a recognition of loss here, of like, yes, I'm losing whatever it is that I'm putting on the other side of the bubble. But it also allows me to move forward and heal in a way that maybe I couldn't before, because you're showing me like, yeah, as hard as it is, as painful as it is, as much as it sucks, it's like you're like instantly healthier because you don't have this toxic influence in your path. It would be like if you didn't realize you were allergic to gluten and then you go to someone's house and they serve you a gluten-free meal and you just feel amazing and you're like, wow, why do I feel so good? And later you realize, oh, that meal didn't have any gluten in it. That's kind of what's happening here, is you're like, maybe on the surface, whatever energy you were letting into your bubble didn't seem toxic or unhealthy, but almost as soon as it's removed, you're like, wow, I feel so much better. It's an interesting analogy, very specific. In the near future, I see you moving in a very positive direction, but you may not know that, and I actually see your higher self guiding you. And this is where your oracle cards for the day come in, because the oracle cards are moment to moment, the rebel, and totality. And so I really see the very important message here for you today, Sagittarius, is for you to move forward on your path at this time, you have to go with how you feel and not what you know. Because your higher self, your intuition, the part of you that is intuitively connected to the world around you and to yourself, is going to guide you forward, but it's going to come not from a place of consciousness, but from the way that things feel. So if something is really exciting for you, if something really lights you up and ignites your passion, in the moment, you're meant to go for it. I could be speaking to a Sagittarius today who struggles to tap into their impulsive side, or who fears that if they do tap into their impulsive side, that they're going to, lose control. But actually, that's the part of your vitality and your fire energy that is your power, that is meant to be unleashed. It is the part of you that just lets loose, that lets your creativity loose, that lets your life force loose, that lets your sexual energy loose, and that just creates and moves forward from that place of vitality. And so Spirit really wants you to live in the moment and embrace that vitality, embrace that firing energy that you have in you, Sagittarius. And many times you may feel like you're a rebel, or that you go against society, or that you go against the norm, or that you're too much, or something like that. And Spirit's really saying with totality, it's okay, and it's actually who you're meant to be completely yourself, and that you'll come totally into yourself and fully integrate all parts of yourself when you stop being afraid to do what you feel in the moment. And there may be times where you have like what we call like intrusive thoughts, and you're like, oh, like, I would really love to just go out and do this thing, but I'm not going to do that because that's an intrusive thought. And it's actually not an intrusive thought. An intrusive thought would be like, I don't know, you're standing in front of a mirror and you're like, let me just punch this mirror. That's an intrusive thought. That's not something you actually want to do. But what you are meant to do is you are meant to go out and live your life. And sometimes that's meant to be spontaneous. And sometimes it's not going to be punching a mirror, but it's going to be something that other people might consider a little bit weird. Or it might be something that can't be justified. And I think that's the piece here, is like, you don't always have to have a logical reason for doing anything. You can just do it because you want to do it. And you can do it because it feels good and because it's meant to align with who you are. And so an example of this could be like, um, you meet a stranger and they strike up a conversation with you, and typically you would, kind of be like, okay, have a good day. But you actually decide to really lean into the moment and really engage with them. And you find out that you have a lot in common. And they actually end up being a really good connection for you, and they help your business or something like that. Like, you're meant to sort of leave your comfort zone and step into the totality of your fire energy and who you are, and really allow yourself to live your life. And so in the future, you may have experiences where things happen that are really unexpected or they're not really planned, and you're meant to just dive fully into that energy. So let's take a look here. There could actually be this feeling of like stepping into like this almost like adolescent energy. Like, you know how teenagers can be kind of impulsive and kind of fiery and like sexual, and they're just like bopping all over the place and bouncing off the walls? That's the energy that I kind of see for you. But it's funny because then we have the high priestess. So even though in some ways it may feel like you're like getting younger or being younger or something like that, like maybe you're like 45 or 55 or 65, but you start acting like you're 15 or 20, and you're like, what am I doing? I'm too old to be doing this. And it's like, no, actually allowing yourself to have fun and step outside the box is going to connect you to your higher self even more. It's a very fun, exciting, sort of daring energy that's coming out here for you today. Yeah, it's funny. Spirit's saying, like, stop thinking and stop being stuck in your material world. I'm almost seeing, like, someone being stuck within four walls. So maybe you stay in the same house or the same room or the same routine all the time. And if you're going to leave it, you kind of think really hard and you're like, is this the right decision? Like, should I really go outside? Like, what am I going to do once I get there? And all these things. And it's a very like dense pentacle earthly energy. You're like, does it make sense? Is it gonna make me money? Is it practical or something like that? And Spirit's saying, lighten up a little bit, like just go outside for the fun of it. Just go sit in the sun because it's warm, or like go talk to that person because they look interesting, like something like that. Spirit's saying you're envisioning doing all these things. Like, you have these thoughts and these feelings of like, what if I just did this? And you could do it, and then you stop yourself and you hold yourself back. And Spirit's saying it's time to actually go do that stuff. Like, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be important. It doesn't have to be useful. It doesn't have to look good to anyone else. It doesn't have to like even have a point. It can just be because you want to go do it, and that's more than enough. And you've actually been holding yourself back for quite some time about quite a lot of different things in your life because you're wrapped up in this energy of, I don't know, doing things right or doing it logically. And maybe there's something in your environment that is unhealthy that you've been attached to. And because of that, and because it's almost like you've attached yourself to something external, if I'm looking at this whole reading, and when it comes to occupying that energy and that forward movement and actually moving forward, I don't think this is conscious, but it's like, if I can't do it with that other energy, then I can't do it at all. And you get really wrapped up in your mind of like, well, I don't know if I should go outside because who am I going to do it with? Or I'm not with that person. And you end up getting a little bit stuck in your head, and your higher self is saying like, you don't need anyone else. You don't need a reason. And you definitely don't need to be stuck on what anyone else thinks of you or who anyone else is. And there could have been a little bit too much of that going on, where it may not even be a specific person, but it's almost like you look to your relationships to kind of give you the go-ahead to do things, or you look to your surroundings to give you that external validation that you're looking for, that it's okay. And Spirit's saying with the High Priestess card here, trust yourself, trust that you have what it takes, trust that you can have fun by yourself, trust that you can do things that you want to do because you want to do them, and that you don't need permission from anybody else. And you could be looking for permission without even realizing it. And that could be what's going on with these other energies that we saw in the beginning of the reading, where you look to them for permission. And so there's something here about taking your power back, releasing yourself from those other people, but not just because of who they are and what they're doing, but actually because the way that you related to them is not serving your highest good. So I am hoping that this is making sense. It's a very, very specific reading, but I hope that someone out there is connecting with it. There's something here about connecting to your higher self and relaxing about all this practical stuff so that you can allow your heart to come through. Because there may be some anxiety. For some of you, it might be about literal money and your literal finances and your literal abundance. But for others of you, it goes a bit deeper than that, and it's about something relating to your material world. So it could be like, I can't go out and have fun because I have to stay home and take care of my family. Or, I don't know, like I can't travel because my cat needs me or something like that. And that can be true, and it's important that you take care of those things. But there's a part of you that's gotten a little bit too wrapped up in all of that, in your material world. And for others of you, I'm hearing it could be a job. And there's something here about really relaxing that part of yourself and lightening up a little bit so that you can allow yourself to step into yourself, because you might have gotten kind of far away from your own energy when you started focusing too much on those external things. And there's nothing wrong with taking care of your environment and your commitments, and I think it's really honorable, Sagittarius, that you want to take care of your commitments, because a lot of people don't follow through. But there's something here about relaxing that energy and connecting more with your heart space so that you can see what it is that actually brings you joy. Because many of you may have become kind of disconnected from what it is that makes you happy, and it's almost because I see you being like so attached to doing what's right or what's correct. And even if you're someone who is like kind of counterculture, like maybe you're a hippie, or maybe you're a political activist, or maybe you're really, really like leftist or something, and that's great, and you really believe in your principles, even if you are kind of counterculture in some ways, there's something that you're so attached to that you've actually lost a sense of your own heart space and just how you feel moment to moment. It doesn't always have to make sense. It doesn't always have to align with some principle or something, which is actually very funny that I'm saying this, because I'm a very principled, honest, like, not type A, but I really honor my commitments, right? So it's funny for me to be saying this, but I think I can take this advice too of like, just lighten up, just loosen up, just allow yourself to have fun and see what happens. Like maybe you'll find out something about how you feel or about who you are. And when I say how you feel and who you are, I mean about like your inner self, your soul, that you've actually been, possibly holding back, or that you haven't really been in contact with for a while. Wow, your advice. I've been getting the sun and the moon together a lot in your readings lately, Sagittarius, so there's something there about harmonizing the internal and the external and finding a balance between that. And you may have been holding back your truth in some way. And I think this is what one of the last readings was about holding back your truth to make other people feel comfortable or something like that. I think it was a couple of readings ago. You can go back and listen if you want to. But it's like you are holding back your fullest, truest self and not really showing the world and not even showing yourself. And I don't think this was even conscious for most of you with the moon here. I don't think you necessarily meant to do this, or you were like really like ashamed, or like, oh, I can't show people this part of myself. Like, it's not like I think you were holding a piece of yourself in the closet or anything like that. But I think there's a part of yourself that actually you were holding back even from yourself, because you were trying to keep up the status quo or keep going with the way that things have always been. And with moment to moment, the rebel and totality as your oracle cards, there's really something here that you're meant to do that kind of goes against the grain, and it's not rigid. It flows between each moment, and in the flowing, that's where who you are starts to come out, and that's where you reach that totality, that sun and the moon energy. There's something here about all the parts of yourself coming into harmony. Not just the parts that make sense to other people, not just the parts that are useful or make you money or look good, but all the parts of you, everything you feel, everything you want, your anger, your sadness, your pain, the ugly parts of you, all of it coming into harmony, um, because that's the totality of who you are. So that's what I have for you, Sagittarius. I hope that this helps. I hope that this resonates, and I'll see you next time.